Hey everyone! In this video you will see the top 5 best tier 7 premium tanks. It is important to note that this is not about the best tanks for silver farming, but about the most powerful and fun premium tanks. Initially, I thought to make a top only with those vehicles that are for sale on an ongoing basis. But then this list would be horrible, because there are almost no good premium tanks at tier 7. So I decided to choose from all the tanks that have ever been for sale. Well, let's go. In 5th place is the Soviet heavy tank, IS-2. It is a classic Soviet heavy tank, with a powerful, but inaccurate gun, good mobility, and pretty weak armor. It is not much different from the grinding IS, the characteristics of which you already know very well. But let's briefly consider why it is on this list. First of all, it has the classic and conceptual gameplay inherent in Soviet heavy tanks. The average damage per shot of 390 is pretty high, as for a tier 7 tank, so dealing 2000 damage per battle is not that hard. The other characteristics of the gun, such as accuracy, stabilization, aiming time, and damage per minute, leave much to be desired, but this gun does not cause much discomfort. In terms of mobility, this tank is pretty good. The maximum speed is 34 km per hour. Specific engine power is 13 horsepower per ton. Of course, this is not the fastest heavy tank at its tier. But moving on a map it is quite comfortable. But the armor of the IS-2 leaves much to be desired. The turret's forehead has an average of about 120 mm of armor, and the hull's forehead has about 160 mm of armor. This is very poor. But you shouldn't forget that this is a Soviet tank, which means that it often somehow magically absorbs any shells without damage. The only advantage is the sides armor, which is 100 mm. It can be used even in battles with tier 8 and 9 tanks. Overall, it's not a bad heavy tank, but I wouldn't recommend to buy it. The thing is that at tier 7 almost all premium tanks are weak and boring, so against their background IS-2 looks relatively strong. If you really want a premium tank for farming, or for fun, it does not matter. I advise you to pay more attention to IS-6 or 112. They cost more, but are more comfortable. In 4th place is the American tank destroyer, M56 Scorpion. First of all, it is worth noting that this tank has the thinnest armor in the game, only 1 mm. It's a thing of this tank. Earlier, when there was friendly fire, the Allies could accidentally touch you, what caused you to lose a lot of health points. But there's no such thing currently, and playing this tank became a little more comfortable. Plus, the Scorpion is a very small tank, and combined with excellent camouflage and classic tank destroyers gameplay, the lack of armor doesn't hinder playing. In terms of mobility, this tank is also very good. The maximum speed is 45 km per hour. Specific engine power is 28 horsepower per ton. Undoubtedly, the same E25 is much faster, but this mobility is still good, as for a tank destroyer. In terms of firepower, the American has a good gun with an average penetration of 218 mm on basic shells. This is enough to easily penetrate almost all tier 8 tanks, and especially tier 7 tanks. There might be problems with tier 9 enemies, but premium shells with average penetration of 275 mm solve those problems. Accuracy and aiming time are amazing. But there are minuses, namely low damage per minute and damage per shot, and also poor stabilization. Overall, it's a comfortable gun, though not the most powerful. In fact, it's a pretty interesting tank, and if you enjoy passive gameplay, you'll definitely like the M56 Scorpion. In 3rd place is the British tank destroyer, AT-15A. I'm sure many of you didn't notice this premium tank and thought that it is an ordinary, boring, and unremarkable tank. Frankly, I thought the same. But once, I managed to play on it, and, after the first battle, I was a little shocked at how awesome this tank is. After all, the characteristics of this British Titan are extremely powerful, as for a tier 7 tank. For example, the AT-15, which is at tier 8, has exactly the same armor, and even for tier 8 this armor is considered quite strong, let alone tier 7. The frontal projection has an average of 220 mm of armor. The exception is the vulnerability, in form of the hatch, which has 150 mm of armor. This armor works great against Tier 7 tanks, and absorbs shells of Tier 8 tanks quite well. Of course, some Tier 8 tank destroyers don't care about this armor, but still. Also, a big plus of the AT-15A is the limited matchmaking. This means that you won't be in battles with Tier 9 tanks. As for the gun, it's just not bad, no more. Average damage per shot is 150, average penetration is 171 mm of basic shells, and 239 mm of premium shells respectively. The other pluses are great accuracy, aiming time, and not bad damage per minute. On the minuses side, it's obvious poor mobility. If you decide to play this tank, I strongly recommend to use turbocharger to somehow improve its mobility. If you like the Tortoise, its concept and gameplay, you'll also like AT-15A. Dear friends, don't forget to like or dislike this video, and write a comment. It would greatly help to promote this video in YouTube recommendations. Okay. Let's move on. In second place is the German tank destroyer, E-25. This is a real legend of World of Tanks, and one of the first premium tanks at Tier 7. First of all, this vehicle is famous for its gun. The base damage per minute is 2,700. And it can be improved to 3,400. This is just incredible. Yes, the damage per shot is not high, only 135, but with such high damage per minute it's not a problem. Also worth noting is excellent accuracy and aiming time. And, despite not the best average penetration, shooting with this gun is a pleasure. Especially, it is a premium tank, and it allows you to often use premium shells. The average penetration of which is 194 mm. Thanks to such firepower, you can take some bush at the base, and fire at the enemies with special comfort. Well, if you don't like passive gameplay, but want to play actively, E-25 is good at that too. The maximum speed is 65 km per hour, and the specific power is 26 horses per ton. In terms of mobility, this tank destroyer surpasses many light tanks at its tier. And only one disadvantage, which makes playing on this tank very difficult for inexperienced players. This is the lack of armor. Yes, E-25 easily penetrated even by high explosive shells. In combination with a low health points, this tank has a very poor survivability. But even this disadvantage is compensated by small size of the vehicle and excellent camouflage. In general, the E-25 is a very interesting, comfortable, and most importantly, fun premium tank, which will definitely enjoy many players. In truth, this tank is quite worthy of the title of the best premium tank of the 7th tier. But there is one tank, which is so ingrained in my soul, that I just couldn't put it in the first place. So, first place. The French light tank, AMX 1357. When this tank first appeared on the market, it was quite mediocre, compared to other light tanks of Tier 7. But, a lot of time has passed since then. There was a rebalance of light tanks in the game, which didn't affect the premium vehicles. As a consequence, the AMX 1357 has become the best light tank at its tier. All thanks to its firepower. The Frenchman is equipped with a gun with a clip for 8 shells, with average damage per shot of 90. The main thing about this gun is the reload time between shots, which is only 1 second. This combination of features gives incredible fun and enjoyable gameplay. You just burst to some enemy, discharge the magazine like a machine gun, deal 720 damage in 7 seconds, and leave to reload. Full reload time is 23 seconds, which is pretty good. In terms of accuracy and stabilization, this gun is not bad, but no more. The only minus is that because of the fast reload you don't have time to fully aim between shots. At close range it's not critical, but when shooting at long range it is significantly. As for mobility, it's pretty good. The top speed is 61 km per hour. Specific engine power is 17 horsepower per ton. Overall, it is not the most mobile light tank. The gameplay of active enemy detection is not for this tank. But this mobility is more than enough for comfortable playing and passive enemy detection. Plus, like any light tank, the AMX 1357 has excellent view range and camouflage. But all the same, this light tank is designed to deal damage, and detecting enemies is its secondary task. Well, thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you found it useful. It's time to say goodbye. Good luck to everyone. And remember, don't play World of Tanks.